It's such an honor and a thrill to be here. I've actually been teaching at Bard since 2002, which makes me wonder where my youth has gone. But I also, since I've been here so long, I've over the years developed certain little rituals and jokes with my students. And one of them is at the beginning of the class each semester, I like to say to them that, I'm going to confiscate your iPhone or your smartphone, and I'm going to replace it. I'm going to replace your iPhone with this. Guess what it is? A pocket edition of Shakespeare sonnets. And I say, just imagine, instead of like texting every few minutes during the break, you would sort of start reading. And imagine after 3 weeks, you'd be like a Shakespeare scholar. And what would you have missed besides sending a lot of texts? And you'd be able to say things like, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Or love is not love, which alters when it alterations finds. So you'd not only, be a little better read, you'd also get maybe some relationship advice. And I love this idea of the pocket Shakespeare because it's what I have in mind today when I mean like how we live with literature, how to make literature a part of our everyday life. There's a great moment in Proust in Search of Lost Time, that I'll introduce to you by saying, maybe in your houses when you were growing up, when I was younger, it was like Encyclopedia Britannica. You remember them? The big sets? Or did some of you have like the collected works of Dickens or George Eliot or something like that? Or the great book series, whatever. What do all those have in common? They were unread. Basically just there as pieces of furniture. So there's a scene in Proust where one of the Swan, the character says, wouldn't it be great, basically I'm paraphrasing, he said, wouldn't it be great if we, took the newspaper and put it in where the bookshelves, the great bookshelves were, and took one of the great books out and laid it out like the newspaper as something that you actually read. That's what I want to talk about today. The idea of substituting a feed, an Instagram feed, or the newspaper with like a George Orwell essay or a Toni Morrison novel. I think that would really change us because there's a difference between knowledge and information. When you're reading these really great works, some of them are difficult, but it stays with you. It doesn't become obsolete over time. And it reminds me of this beautiful quote the theme of this year's conference is bridges. So in the spirit of bridges, I thought of this quote by Percy Bysshe Shelley, a great British romantic poet from the early 19th century, where he said, a great poem is a fountain forever overflowing with the waters of wisdom and delight. And after one person in one age has exhausted all its divine effluence, which their peculiar relations enable them to share, another and yet another succeeds, and new relations are developed, the source of an unforeseen and an unconceived delight. By that, Shelley meant every generation comes to these books and finds something. It's kind of a miracle when you think about it. When you think that Shakespeare has been read for centuries, and that it made sense in the 17th century, in the 18th century, in the 19th century. When it stops making sense, we won't read it anymore. No work is guaranteed immortality. I think you can train yourself to be a reader, even if you're not, or even if you're reading less than you were before. So I want to kind of talk about some tools and techniques that can make you enter books like Jane Austen, books like The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon, Moby Dick. These are books with high barriers to entry, but they're also remarkably enjoyable and pleasurable and edifying once you get inside them. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to give you some tools and techniques, but first I want you to take a look at this gentleman over here, okay? I'm Italian, so I can say this nice Italian person over here. This is Raphael's portrait of Baldassare Castiglione. It's from 1528, and Castiglione was considered the ideal courtier. He was the one who wrote a book on how to act in court for the prince. He came up with this idea of sprezzatura. You ever heard that word before? It means like, never let them see you sweat. Studied nonchalance. Work hard to make things seem easy, basically. How to act, think, and feel in court. I also think he's got the look of a reader. Notice, you ever compare the face of someone who's surfed the web for an hour to someone who's read a good book for an hour? Someone who's surfed the web for an hour, they're frazzled, it's like they just drank all this Red Bull, they seem hyped up, they're not sure what they even started looking for in the first place. Someone who's read a good book for an hour has that serenity. The neurons are firing, they're relaxed, there's a sense of peace in the world. So I think we can all aspire to that state of calm repose that comes with good reading. And to get there, I want to give you what I call some gentle guidelines. I'll call them commandments because it sounds severe and it's kind of catchy, but I'm going to give you my 11 commandments. Someone else already beat me to 10, so I wouldn't dare call them 10. But I want to give you 11 commandments to make literature, books, a part of your everyday life, okay? The first one I would say is find a reading space. Find a reading space. It'd almost be a ritual for you, a place you go to, a park, a cafe, a room in your house. Some of our wonderful talks today have talked about reconnecting with nature and sort of discovering nature again. Maybe read outdoors, wherever it is. Make it a regular place that you go to. Let it be a retreat, a refuge, a sanctuary that is consecrated to reading and reading alone. Something will happen when you start to go there. You'll start to look forward to going there. You'll start to associate it with that calm and that repose. And it will be your reading space. But in order for that to happen, the second thing has to happen. We have to leave our literary comfort zone. By that I mean, there's books that all of us love. Some of us love books on gardening, maybe not 17th century gardening like this one. Some of us love fantasy, science fiction, and that's great. Everyone should have a go-to genre. You shouldn't just be reading like, Augustine and Virgil every day, unless you want to. Everyone has books that we love, and that's a beautiful thing. Sometimes the best things in life are surprises. The best people we never planned to meet surprise us. A book can surprise you too. But in order for that to happen, we have to make that space a non-distraction zone. This might be the hardest. You cannot bring your phone. You can't multitask. Reading is one of the few things in life that you can't. Do you ever notice that? You can listen to music, some of you, and multitask. You can't read and multitask. God forbid someone would try and operate on a patient and read or drive and read. It would be disastrous because it's so cognitively demanding. Think about that. That's why you can't multitask when you read. And that's why reading is becoming a bit endangered in an attention-starved society. It's because you cannot do it and do other things. The fourth thing I would say is, okay, Luzzi, I get it. You're a professor. You want us to read the classics. But that's not really what I'm saying. I'm really not. I hope you do read some classic works. Reading should be fun. If it becomes if reading becomes like the equivalent of a high-fiber diet, it ain't gonna work. If I make it seem like just get that Tolstoy down, it'll be good for you. Like, literature's not steamed broccoli, okay? It's not. It has to be fun. It has to be enjoyable. It has to be a pleasure. I don't think that word is used often enough with reading. I think we've made it, whether it's ideology or politicized it, all those factors are part of it, no question. But at the end of the day, it has to be pleasurable, enjoyable. So read your books on whatever you love, gardening, science fiction, fantasy. All those are essential because you have to associate reading with something that's fun and enjoyable in addition to trying new books. But don't avoid difficult books. This is probably one of the most difficult books. So many people have wanted to pull their hair out over Ulysses. So many people have tried and failed. I, as a professor, years ago when I was starting out as a reader, I also struggled with it. It took multiple times to get it. And I actually did something interesting recently. I made a list of some of my favorite novels, and I realized that all of them had excruciatingly difficult passages, or even like passages that were like, seemed insurmountable, whether it was the chapters on the whale skeleton in Moby Dick, the stream of consciousness in Ulysses, the family descriptions in Dostoevsky. These are all tough. But you know what? I guarantee you, if you invest in them, it's the opposite of like an immediate gratification. If you invest in them and get through them, these books, I've seen it happen so many times, will become your favorites. There's something about the demanding journey that is part of the payoff at the end. And that means sometimes rereading books, okay? Rereading books. Oscar Wilde said, if a book isn't worth reading more than once, it's probably not worth reading at all. And I think that that's a really important thing to remember. Study. There's some books that you just have to study. You just have to reread, give them a second chance. Don't shy away from that, because the other thing, when you reread them, you will find a different meaning. This has always fascinated me. I think the more I teach, the more I think that it's books that read us instead of the other way around. Read a book that you read in high school, or those of you who've graduated college, read it again years later, it will mean something different. It's really astonishing to see how the book itself doesn't change, but the meaning of it will change over time. And read in a foreign language. There's nothing like making English seem strange to you than reading in a foreign language, than studying something in a foreign language, because you can start to see English with a little distance. In Latin, I had a wonderful, extraordinary Latin teacher, and he always used to say, Latin is the most practical thing you'll ever study. Now think about that, Latin. But he was right in a way. I mean, it's amazing. Mr. Terranova, my great high school Latin teacher, I think about his lessons all the time. When I come across a word like consider or contemplate, and I say, oh, right, consider, the root of that is with a star. So to consider something is almost like to gaze at the heaven. Or to contemplate with a sacred spot. It's almost like you're an elevated form of reflection. That all comes from studying foreign languages, and that will inform your reading. I think you should always read new fiction. Literature is being made in the present tense. It's not enough to just go into the library. Go to your local bookstore. See what new books are coming out. Give new fiction a chance. This is the thing. If it's just passively received lists of what the great books are, it's not about making culture in the present tense. And that is so important. Honor your new readers. Read new fiction. And the last couple ones I will say is, you should always be reading something, okay? Keep something in your bedside, in your purse, your bag, your backpacks. Always be reading something. Always be reading something. Just make it a habit. And memorize literature. This is so important. Each year, give yourself a task of memorizing a short piece. Think of the word by heart. When you learn something by heart, it means literally you internalize it. It becomes part of your somatic experience. It becomes part of your body. It's like your favorite song. If I asked you what your favorite song was, you wouldn't say, there's this song, Hey Jude. It's about this guy who's reflecting on this terrible thing that's happened to this guy named Jude. No, you'd start going, nah, or whatever. It's like your song is like the lyrics of a poem. You know, there's a beautiful poem by John Milton on his blindness that I always give to my students at the beginning of the semester without listing the name or the title, and I have them read it. And it's very challenging because it's a 17th century poem. But then when we go through it and we read it through, when I consider how my light is spent ere half my days in this dark world and wide, and that one talent which is death to hide, lodge with me useless, though my soul more bent therewith to serve my Maker, lest he returning chide. And we unpack it and we realize it's about his going blind, this personal crisis. When I consider how my light is spent. It's literal. And memorizing that brings that drama home for all of us. The last thing I would say is, I wrote a piece a few years ago, the Reader's Rule of Fours, where I was like, read for 45 minutes a day. I'm gonna up it up a little. Let's go for an hour a day. I said 45 minutes a day, 4 days a week. Let's try for an hour a day, 5 days a week. You can have the weekends off. Just imagine, there's a big book called Middlemarch, some of you may have read. It's like one of those doorstopper books. If you read an hour a day, after a few weeks, you'll be done with Middlemarch. And I'll close by reading you one of my favorite quotes that to me captures what the reading experience is all about. It's from Charles Dickens. It's from David Copperfield. And David Copperfield is Dickens' favorite book. It's his autobiography. He grew up poor. His family were put in debtor's prison when he was 12 years old, and he never got over it. It made him into a writer. He felt he never wanted to be poor and hungry again, and so he worked maniacally to build a career. And when he wrote David Copperfield, he talked about a boy like him, the protagonist, David Copperfield, who lost his father before he was born, and whose mother remarried an awful man with one of the greatest names in literature, the evil stepfather called Mr. Murdstone. Okay? And this is what David Copperfield said one day in the midst of all his childhood problems. This was my only and my constant comfort. When I think of it, the picture always arises in my mind of a summer evening, the boys at play in the churchyard, and I sitting on my bed, reading as if for life. Every barn in the neighborhood, every stone in the church, and every foot of the churchyard had some association of its own, in my mind, connected with these books. I think that's it right there. The safety, the security, the empathy, and yes, the rapture that comes with reading the books we love. Thank you so much. Thank you.